Way, good afternoon. How you doing? Karibuni sana. This is Sheria Dive right here on Power Radio, and why are we doing this on Wednesday? I mean, wacha ni maswali mob manze. Let's just get on with it. Sasa. Thank you for those that are joining us for this show. I'm James WaNjeri here with you. Remember, this is a show where we talk the law. Now, I don't know if you saw this from your faves this past weekend. Many of our content creators, I saw Njugush, I saw Terrence, they posted some notices that they got from KFCB, where KFCB was basically saying that you guys are making films, you are not been licensed to make films, and you are not submitting those films to us to actually look at them and approve them before you can share them with the public. Now, there are many thoughts on this, and we're going to be discussing this on today's show. Does KFCB actually have the power to do this? And what law gives them the mandate for this? And of course, if you're a content creator, this is going to be an interesting discussion for you just to understand what the law actually provides and whether this can go ahead. Remember, you can ask any questions that you have on the socials, and we're here to just respond to those questions and to hear what exactly does KFCB want. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about this act that is known as the Films and Stage Plays Act, which is chapter 222 of the Kenyan laws. That is the act of parliament that establishes the KFCB. So some of the questions we're going to be asking ourselves is the video you put on YouTube, you record with your phone, should that be considered a film for purposes of KFCB coming in to look at it?
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Now, on one hand, there's the argument that the government has waited for an industry to be created, or rather to create itself. Kenyans have been creative and they've been like, yeah, we need to come up with something of our own. They've come up with that. And then they've now decided, hey, we never helped you to create this industry. We never provided you with any resources. We never gave you any materials. But now, satumona hii industry ni kubwa, so it's time for us to step in and actually get something from it, okay? That's the one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is this, that the government wants you to submit your production to them to approve, okay? So there have been questions about, does the government actually have capacity? Because I know content creators sometimes will make even 10 videos a day, for instance. So does the government have the capacity to actually go through all those and give them back to you for uploading? And how does that affect the business of the content creator? Because remember, this is business, right? If you're not putting out content on a regular basis, then you lose that online audience. But number 3, is there a more sinister motive, which is censorship? Is the government trying to censor what we can say online and what we can put online by bringing in a regulator, to come and say, hey, this cannot work? Those are the arguments. But today, we are actually just looking at what does the law actually provide. Now, if you look at the description for this act, it says that this is an act of parliament to provide for controlling the making and exhibition of cinematograph films, for the licensing of stage plays, theaters, and cinemas, and for purposes incidental thereto and connected therewith. Kizungu nyingi, but basically what are we saying? That there are 2 issues. There's controlling the making, and there's also controlling the exhibition of cinematograph films. Now, for those of you who have an interest in film, there used to be an instrument called a cinematograph, okay? And this is what would be used to record films back in the day. This was one of the first instruments that was used to record films. So that's the background that it comes from. And so one of the arguments has been, if you record on your phone, does your phone actually fall under the definition of what a cinematograph is, okay? So we're going to be looking at the act, and I think very soon the High Court of Kenya will actually be answering the question. If you record a video with your phone, should that actually fall under this act, okay? Now, what is to exhibit? Under the law, to exhibit is to give or make or cause or permit to be given or made or take part or assist in the giving or making of any exhibition, all right? And of course, the exhibition is the projection of a film or other optical effect by means of a cinematograph or similar apparatus. This is very important, okay? Because when the law looks at exhibition, right, it means that projection is done through a cinematograph or a similar apparatus. Does a video that has been uploaded on YouTube fall under that? Has a cinematograph been used to exhibit that? Or has it been created and then it has been uploaded onto this system? That's one of the first things that I think the KFCB are going to run into a problem with. But the most important definition here, of course, is the definition of a film. What is a film? Under the law, the Act says that a film is a cinematographic film. So this word cinematograph, you're going to be running into it. So just Google it, man. You can even see the image of what this looks like, okay? So a film means a cinematographic film, recorded video cassette film, recorded video disc, any recorded audio-visual medium, and includes any commentary, wherever spoken and whether the person speaking appears in the film or not, and any music or other sound effect associated with the film and any part of a film. So basically, when you're talking about what a film is, under the Act, it says that the film either is a film of the cinematograph, okay? So remember, we talked about this instrument called a cinematograph there, or it's a recorded video cassette. Wasewa dek mnakumbuka? Those of you who are cool kids growing up used to have a VCR, okay? That's the video cassette film. Then there's recorded video discs. Of course, the law anticipates that there are many mediums that can be used, and that's why it says any recorded audiovisual medium. And this as well includes the commentary. So if someone is speaking within the film, that is fine. If you're doing a voiceover, that is also considered to be part of the film. So one wonders, the guys who are doing advertisements, for instance, should advertisements be submitted to KFCB for them to approve them? Because if they're using that reasoning, then it means that the ad you see on TV for all these products, it falls under the definition of what a film is, right? But I don't know if they've actually been asked to come forward and submit those advertisements for approval. I think KFCB is creating a monster here, and it's going to eat someone. Itakula mtu. Very soon, but we shall see. Now, what is a public exhibition? A public exhibition, also known as a public performance, means an exhibition and a performance to which the public are admitted, whether on payment or gratuitously. So it means the public have been allowed. Here it is, come and see, okay? And this can either be they've paid or it has been done for free. So. Now, under Section 4 of that Act, this is the Act known as the Films and Stage Plays Act. No film shall be made within Kenya for public exhibition or sale, either within or outside Kenya, except under and in accordance with the terms and conditions of a filming license, which means content creators, the person who is making that film needs to be licensed to make it, okay? Now, where any film is made in contravention of the provisions of that subsection, the producer, the proprietor, the promoter, and photographer, and every other person engaged in the making of the film shall each be guilty of an offense, okay? So at Section 4, it creates that offense. Now, Section 5 of that Act then speaks about the application for filming license. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. When you apply for a filming license, that application shall be made to the licensing officer in writing, okay? It shall be accompanied by a full description of the scenes in and the full text of the spoken parts, which means you have to submit the script as well. So those of you guys who are just thinking of an idea on the spot and recording it, you actually need to have prepared a script and you share that script with them. You also give a full description of the scenes that will be there. Now, this will be for the scenes and the full text of the entire film which is to be made, notwithstanding that part of the film is made or to be made outside Kenya. Sawa. Now, however, the licensing officer is given discretion to accept an application even though it has not been accompanied by such description and text. Sawa. Now, for those content creators who create content in your mother tongue, Subsection 2 says, if any title, subtitle, text, description, synopsis, or other part of the film is in a language other than English, the licensing officer may require a translation thereof in English, certified to his satisfaction, or may submit the same for examination and report of such persons as he may appoint for the purpose. So what are we saying here? If you are putting your content in Luo, for instance, you have to submit that content in Luo and then also provide a translation, okay, into English, because everything has to be submitted in English language. Now, at section 6, it gets interesting because the licensing officer, in his discretion, they have absolute discretion to either issue or refuse to issue you the filming license. So applying is also not a guarantee that you're going to be given this license, okay? They can decide to issue it or not. Now, in addition to this, they can also subject it to the condition that a police officer of the rank of inspector or above, okay, be present at the making of the film and to such other conditions as he may think fit. I think let's get some music. Let's get some music and then we come back. Where? Higher.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
One day you stayed in your house and you're wondering, now what do I do with my life? And then you're like, wait a minute, I could actually talk about something I enjoy. So you pick up your phone and you record a short video talking about something you like, or maybe saying a funny joke, and you post it on Facebook, on Instagram, maybe even on Twitter and on YouTube. Kidogo kidogo, people are like, hey, that was so funny. Give us another one. You're like, just a phone and Wi-Fi. You go ahead and do it. But now you're about to learn that if KFCB has its way, part of the requirements is that for you to get the license, the KFCB can actually order that a police officer be present when you're recording your film, okay? Or when you're recording your content. Now, not just that, but number 2 is that before you're granted a filming license, the licensing officer may require you as the applicant to enter into a bond, okay? A bond is simply money that you'll deposit money, okay? And that bond can be with or without sureties in a sum that will be prescribed. So as I say, 100,000 or $1 million, okay? Give us a bond for that. And basically what a bond says is that if you violate the terms of the license, then you lose that money. So if you had put up a bond for $1 million, then that $1 million imeenda hivyo, imekunywa maji if you violate the terms. Sawa sawa? So you will be required to provide a bond when you're recording. And of course, there'll be a police inspector or a higher grade there with you as you record. This is what the Kenya Films and Stage Plays Act provides. And the KFCB is trying to bring in content creators, people who post their videos online, is trying to bring them under these acts. So these are some of the rules that will be applying to you. Now, I just need to make this clear. Those guys who are actually in film production, people who do series, TV series or movies, all that, these are people who actually know these rules and they abide by those rules, because for a long time, it has always been understood what a film is. But now what is happening is that a new definition of what a film is, or rather we are bringing a new form of content under the meaning of the word film. And that is the videos that are being posted on YouTube, the videos that are being posted on social media, because YouTube is a social media site, right? So is it fair then to subject content creators to the same requirements as you would for someone who's putting a movie together, okay? Now, let's continue. Section 7 of that act says that where you want to make a material alteration or addition to the text, the synopsis or the scene of a film which is to be made, and a license had been issued for it, the holder of the license will apply to the licensing officer for permission to make the alteration or addition, okay? So if you submitted, this is a film, this is a text, these are the scenes you're going to take, and then you realize, I need to add this, or we need to include this. You have to go and again talk to the person who's given you the license, who is the licensing officer, okay? and the licensing officer has to agree to that. Okay, so during production, if you have any changes during production, you have to seek approval for those changes. Now, remember, the decision of the licensing officer is final, and his decision shall be endorsed on the filming license. And if he has any conditions, the conditions will be issued there. Now, under Section 8, no film shall be made otherwise than in accordance with the particulars furnished the licensing officer, except where alterations, permission for alterations or additions has been granted. Okay? Now, if you have a filming license, okay, and then you make the film in contravention of that subsection 8.1, then the producer, the proprietor, the promoter, and the photographer, they will be guilty of an offense. Sawa sawa? Now, what is a police officer there to do during the filming of, during the making of the film? All right, let's go. This is under Section 9 of the Act. Now, where a filming license is issued subject to the condition that a police officer or other person appointed for the purpose shall be present at the making of the film, that police officer may, in his discretion, okay, if needed to, can use force to stop the making of any scene which, in his opinion, endangers the safety of any person or property, okay, other than, of course, the property in possession of the producer or the promoter. They also have the power to stop any, they also have the power to stop the recording of any scenes which, in their opinion, is cruel or causes unnecessary suffering to an animal, or which he has reason to believe is being made in contravention of any of the provisions of the Act or any regulations made. There is a lot of discretion that is being given to this police officer, and that is why they are present. If they see anything there and they're like, hey, no, this is the wrong thing to do and it should not be done, they can actually stop the recording of that film. Okay? Now, under subsection 2, where the police officer intervenes, okay, they shall notify the licensing officer why they intervened and of course give reasons, okay, and the licensing officer may either permit the making of the film to be resumed, or the holder of the license will be given an opportunity to be heard, and if they are heard, they can permit the making of the film to be resumed on such conditions as he may think fit, or refuse to permit the making of the film to be resumed. Now, can you stop that police officer from stopping the recording of the film? No. Under subsection 9.3, it says, any person who obstructs or hinders any police officer or other person in the exercise of his duties under this section shall be guilty of an offense. You cannot stop that police officer or any other person in the exercise of their duties, okay? Now, where after an intervention has been made, the making of the film is resumed without the permission of the licensing officer, or you've done it without abiding by the conditions that have been set, then the producer, the proprietor, the promoter, and the photographer, and every other person engaged in the making of the film shall be guilty of an offense. Okay? Now, the licensing officer has the power to exempt the provisions of that part of the film or any class of films generally or by reference, okay, to the person or class of persons making the film or film. So basically what you're saying here is that the licensing officer can issue a gazette notice saying the following films are exempted from these provisions of this act. So that can be done. So maybe that's one of the things that content creators actually, as you look at how to engage the government, that's one of the things you can do, because a gazette notice can be issued that can simply say anyone who's making these clips for social media should be exempted from the provisions of this, because it just is getting expensive. And this is, unfortunately, one of the things with government is every time the government steps into something, it just becomes unnecessarily expensive. Because you can imagine now you needed to apply for the license, okay? You have the police officer coming in, you have all these requirements, and the cost just keeps going higher and higher. And of course, we know that the government has been speaking about the online economy, the digital economy. So how does this fit into what the government is trying to do with that digital economy? Now, when you come back, we're going to be talking about the Kenya Film Classification Board, KFCB. If you remember, this is where Ezekiel Mutua used to be. I don't know whether he's still there. I'm going to check on that. But we're going to be looking at that and see what powers does the KFCB have, even as we talk about these matters.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Yes, we're talking about the Kenya Film Plays, the Kenya Films and Stage Plays Act. Of course, KFCB, which is the Kenya Film Classification Board, is established under this Act of Parliament and established under Section 11, okay? Now, what is the power of this KFCB, okay? Or rather, what is it that KFCB is meant to do? Now, the functions, number one, is that they regulate the creation, the broadcasting, possession, distribution, and exhibition of films, okay? So how do they do this? Number one, they examine every film and every poster submitted under the Act for purposes of classification. So these are the ones who decide whether a movie is PG rated, whether it's R rated, okay, all that. They also impose an age restriction on viewership. Number three is they also give consumer advice having due regard to the protection of women and children against sexual exploitation or degradation in cinematograph films and on the internet. This is also the board that has the mandate to license and to issue certificates to distributors and exhibitors of films, okay? So, we'll be seeing a rating on some of the videos that have been done by content creators. Of course, one has to realize I think we've seen some crazy things online in terms of videos that are being put out by people, and of course that falls under freedom of expression, and one has to decide whether that freedom of expression is not being exercised as per the law. But you wonder really how much power does the KFCB have over what goes onto the internet, and whether they can actually say this cannot be shown to, for instance, people who are under 18. How do they regulate that? It's easier to regulate it when it's a movie being shown in a theater, when it's a movie coming on TV, anything like that. So it will be actually very interesting to see how they go around that. Now, remember as well, when you have a movie, when you have a film, you're required to have a poster, okay? So they also approve the poster. They have to look at the poster and approve, see the graphics that are being used, the images that are being used, and then determine, does this actually work? Or should it be changed? Okay. Now, remember as well, exhibiting a film or displaying a poster or a film without being licensed and without following the provisions of this act creates an offense. So you'll be guilty of an offense. Sawa? Now, this act also determines what are the films that are unsuitable for children. Okay. So when looking at a movie or a film, the board will record its ruling either saying this is for adults only, or B, it's unsuitable for children under the age of 16 years, or C, unsuitable for children under the age of 10 years. Okay? And so those approvals will be issued on that basis. Now, what happens if you are unhappy with the decision of a licensing officer? Okay? Any person under Section 29 who is aggrieved by a decision of a licensing officer, licensing authority or the board may appeal to the minister, in this case the cabinet secretary, and the minister may, subject to this act, confirm, vary, or reverse that decision. So we are seeing that the cabinet secretary has a lot of power in determining how that works. Okay. Now remember as well that if a license, certificate, or approval or permission has been issued, the minister can revoke it at any time. Okay. Now, what about powers of entry? What happens when a police officer is suspicious that there's a movie being made here? I want to own a license. Under Section 31, the police officer above, of or above the rank of inspector, okay, or any person authorized by the minister in writing, if they have a reasonable cause to believe that an exhibition of a film is being or is about to be made or given on any premises, can demand that the person in charge of those premises allow them free entry and to afford them all reasonable facilities to determine whether the exhibition is being about to be made or given and whether the provisions of the Film and Stage Plays Act and regulations are being followed. Okay? If that person is unable to access those premises, he can enter those premises without having to issue a warrant and inspect them. Okay? Now, where such an officer is satisfied that there's an exhibition that is happening or is about to happen, okay, and that exhibition contravenes the provisions of the Act or the regulations, then they have the power to, number one, order that the exhibition be stopped and shall not be further made. You cannot continue until all provisions, terms, and conditions are complied with. So yes, you could be doing an exhibition. The government has the power to step in and say, you are not going to show that film here. Sawa sawa? Now, where an exhibition to which the public admitted is being made or given, an officer, okay, after production of his authority to any person, may demand to see the certificate of approval of the film. So this comes to the showcasing, okay, the exhibition. How this will apply to the online space remains unclear, and we're gonna just be looking to see how the government tries to come into this. Because remember, it's easier to stop a movie that is being screened at a cinema. But what if someone is doing a live stream? How do you actually stop a live stream? Considering that that is something that is beyond your power, okay? It's beyond your control. So these are some of the questions that will be coming. This will not be an easy battle. It will be a long battle, and we're just going to see. And of course, remember, if you obstruct that officer, then you're guilty of an offense, okay? Now, what are the penalties? We've spoken about the offenses here, but what are the penalties? If you are found guilty of an offense under the Act, you'll be liable to a fine not exceeding 100,000 shillings, okay? So that's a maximum fine. But you can also be imprisoned for a term not exceeding 5 years, or you get both, a fine and imprisonment. Hey, let's get a song. I think that's some heavy news.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Now, having gone through that act, you've seen the penalties, you've seen the requirements. I want us to look at that letter by KFCB, okay? I have it right here. Now, this letter says that our attention has been drawn to your YouTube channel, okay? This is one of the content creators, where you have continuously uploaded audio-visual content for purposes of exhibiting and distributing to the public without acquiring the requisite filming licenses from Kenya Film Classification Board, okay? Now, number 2, Section 15 of the Films and Stage Plays Act mandates the Kenya Film Classification Board to regulate the creation, broadcasting, possession, distribution, and exhibition of film and broadcast content in the country. That further, Section 4 of the Act requires all filmmakers producing film within Kenya for public exhibition or sale, locally or internationally, to obtain a filming license. Additionally, Section 12 requires that all classes of film being distributed, exhibited, or broadcasted within Kenya must be examined by KFCB and a certificate of approval issued. That consequently, we demand that you strictly comply with the requirements of the Film and Stage Plays Act by obtaining filming licenses for your films and submit them for examination and classification before the same is exhibited and distributed to the public through your YouTube channel. Sawa? That's what the letter. I'm trying to look for a page 2 of this letter because I saw it had a page 2. But that is the letter that a lot of our content creators received. So the first thing unaambiwa, usilete mchezo, okay? Now, that letter also says, take notice, unless you comply with the above, in the next 14 days, we shall institute legal proceedings against you. Okay? Now, having heard what the law provides and having just even heard this letter that was issued, what are your views? We'd like to hear from you. Reach out to us on the socials. For now, of course, content creators are advised to watch that space, watch what happens. Now, After that, we've actually seen some responses that have come through. Now, 5 days ago, the Kenya Film Classification Board chairperson Jogun Njoroge came to the rescue of YouTube content creators and directed the board to withdraw demand letters directing content creators to acquire filming licenses or face legal action. Okay? In a statement hours after the ultimatum, Njoroge said in a statement that he has directed the board to recall the notices to pave way for stakeholders' engagement. And that is Kenya's language for kujeni tukae chini tuongee, because we are moving forward with this, whether you like it or not. Okay? Now, there has not been any confirmation at this moment whether those negotiations have taken place or whether there have been any discussions that have been held. Of course, Ezekiel Mutua also spoke, and when you come back, we're going to be listening to what did Ezekiel Mutua actually say about this matter. All right? But that is it for you, content creators. You are now required to come under the Kenya Films and Stage Plays Act. Sawa? That is the act that you're required to come under, which means as you create your content, you are considered a filmmaker. You must get approval. You must be given the right to distribute and the right to exhibit. If you do not have that, then actions can be taken against you, some of which are include prosecution. Remember, we've said that the maximum penalty of the fine you can get is 100,000 shillings, and you can also be jailed for a period not exceeding 5 years. How have the content creators reacted to this? It has been an interesting reaction. Now, Abel Mutua said, KFCB, mnajua nacheka nini? Hii ni maajabu. Njugush says that KFCB says as a trend, I quickly shoot a clip on my phone to run with the trend, but I first send it to you to approve the 2-minute film instead of using YouTube's own checks. Jamani guys, gagging ama ni hali ya kutafuta. Kama uko na YouTube channel unaonaje? Obina, who is also one of the content creators who received this notice, says, Wololo, sasa hii ni gani tena? Hebu mni update jamani, mimi nimechanganyikiwa. Let me highlight my friend Ezekiel Mutua nichanue before kinirambe. Awinja was also received this notice, and she says, Yani, the moment there have been increased positive content creation, job creation, and international recognition, KFCB mnafufuka. The fact that you have not even considered a sit down with content creators, you have just gone straight to red taping us. It says so much about your intentions. That's some of the feedback that they've been getting from some of the content creators. So, how will this pan out? I suspect that very soon the courts of Kenya will be invited to actually make a determination on what exactly amounts to a film, and whether these content creators should actually fall under the control of the KFCB.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.
Yeah, we've come to the end of this show. This is Sheria Dive on Power Radio, and today we're talking about that notice to content creators. I hope you've learned something. Remember, we're always looking out for your feedback and your questions. I know there are a lot of people who are affected by this, and remember, at Power Radio, all we want to do is just promote the rights of young people to earn a living, and just to help you ensure that everything you do, you're doing it within the law. So that's why we exist. That's why we're here. Thank you so much for making time for our show today. We appreciate you. Thank you. Have a lovely week coming up ahead. Tunaombea sana. See you on Saturday. We'll be back here on Saturday. This show also happens on Saturday between 1 to 3 p.m. So we'll be here. Looking forward to see you. God bless you and have a lovely rest of the week.
From sunrise to sunset, all day and night. Power Radio.